All right, hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we have another Andrew Wilson one. Um, in before all the comments say, why don't you just debate him? Dude, Andrew Wilson has blown up in popularity. It's not that easy to just kind of reach out and debate him. But I would obviously be open to it. I would be open to debating anyone, even a commenter. If you're perturbed by the arguments that I make in this video, then add my Discord, which is always in the comments, and we can do a debate. But with that being said, today we have a short one on illegal immigration. He debates this girl on illegal immigration. And I just watched like the first, 5 or so minutes and thought this would be a good one because a lot of people really suck on illegal immigration. Like, I guess right off the bat, I can just say that my position on illegal immigration is that as a pure policy matter, it probably doesn't make sense to have to just let everyone in. But that is only because, it could be exploited by like foreign nations, and there are, obviously criminals could come across the border. And so I think that there should be some sort of filtration system instantiated at the border. But my ideal is pretty close to open borders insofar as if someone is not a criminal and if they're willing to work, then I see no reason to turn them away. Similarly, I don't have much of an issue with illegal immigration as it is, as it unfolds in America today. Economically speaking, it is undeniably a benefit. Andrew Wilson says as much in this video. He just says that it's quote-unquote slave labor. That's a stupid point. I'll address it when we get to it. So it's undeniably economically beneficial, just like legal immigration itself. Also, culturally, you get the benefit. Come on, I know people like to laugh, but Mexican food is good. And that's where a lot of and actually illegals don't come from Mexico as much anymore. But you get a lot of Central Americans. There are starting to be other people as well, but I'm sure they'll have some good food too. So, people laugh about the food argument, but I actually do think there's a benefit to cultural diversity. And lastly, safety. It's undeniably safer to have illegal immigrants come in. They commit less crime. And there's this stupid semantic point people will make where they'll be like, well, they commit a crime by definition by entering, so they're automatically criminals. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about when we ask, are these people increasing the crime rate? We wouldn't ask the question if it was by virtue an increase in crime rate by their entrance. That would just obviate the need for the question. So the fact that serious people do ask this question means that we're getting at something different. We're trying to ask, are these people once in more violent or more prone to criminality than the native population? And the answer is unequivocally no. If you look in Texas, they've collected data. They're the only state that separates by legal, illegal, and actual citizen status. And they have seen that both legal and illegals commit less crime than all of the various races. And before, far right people say, well, not than white people. No, they do. They commit less crime than white people too. Similarly, if you look at large, because most of our illegal immigrants come from Latin America, we can look at large Latino cities with a large Latino population. Obviously, they also have a large undocumented population. Cities like El Paso, they're among the safest large cities in the country. So it's a slam dunk for safety, economics, and culture. And so there's just no reason to pretend as though it's this horrible thing. It's a complete fear-mongering done by the administration to probably distract from something who really knows, but come on. It's just not that big of a deal.
So, are you in favor of illegal immigration?
Didn't Lastly, I'll say this just to play into your common sense. When you walk around, in like a dangerous city at night, are you worried about like some illegal Hispanic construction worker killing you? You're probably not. And so I got to ask, when are you worried about them in your day-to-day life? And if you're not worried about them in your day-to-day life, why do you think you have this big fear? It's probably because the media you consume tells you it's so bad, but you've actually never stood back and asked yourself, why is it so bad? There is a single subset of the population which is deleteriously impacted by immigration, and it's people without high school diplomas. If you are that population, I am sorry. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to leave those people with some sort of solution. Targeted redistribution could be a means by which we distribute the benefits of a system which allows for more immigration to those people, and then everyone is benefited. But let's get into it. I'm stalling.
You say that morality is based around empathy?
Yes, I did.
So wouldn't that be an immoral position? Or is it just a moral position because you don't have any empathy for this group of people?
What do you mean? I said you have no empathy talking about Elon Musk just because, I mean, I'm not for illegal immigration. That's not something that I'm advocating for, but I think that posting it in that way, as if it's funny to do that to people and just pick up their whole lives, I don't think that that's funny. I think it's tragic. And I understand that we have to do it, but I think that it could be done in a better way that's not immoral.
So your problem was that he was just laughing about it?
Yeah, I do have a problem with that.
But I mean, it is kind of ironically funny, right?
How?
Well, because if you break into my house,
Right.
and then the cops come and take you out, I'm probably gonna laugh at you, right?
Okay.
Would you laugh at somebody who broke in your house and then?
I do think that's a little bit different, though.
But would you laugh at them?
Sure. Yeah.
And like I says, but would you? As if she didn't just bring up the exact reason why this whole line of argumentation fails. Breaking into your house is not analogous to someone entering the country. A house is a spatio-temporally limited place. All right, what that means is that it is there and it is not there at certain times, and it is also spatially bounded. The nation has extended for a long time. It'll be here after we're gone. It'll be here before. It was here before we were here, rather. And it's spatially, virtually boundless in terms of, we have a ton of uninhabited land. Now, I understand that illegals generally congregate in major metropolitan areas, but my point is, I actually don't notice when an illegal walks into the country. I'm pretty sure I would notice when someone breaks into my house. And I'm pretty sure that it would impose more of a burden on me when someone breaks into my house than when someone enters the country. I also think that there's a difference in the motives between people who break into someone's home and people who enter a country trying to find work. Now, I know I baked in a little bit of a presupposition there that they're trying to find work, but just look at the statistics. Most of them are not coming in and committing a bunch of crime, and so we can infer a motive from that. And so the analogy just fails on every single level. I think a lot of people don't understand that analogical reasoning by analogy, has to rely upon analogies that are sound. Obviously, all analogies will break down at some point, but this is an analogy that is just prima facie absurd.
Is your empathy for them then?
Well, I think that's a little bit different because those people aren't breaking into my house to live a better life. They're breaking into my house probably for a bad reason, I would assume, anyway.
Well,
That's a pretty bad argument because he's just going to say that they're going to better their life by stealing your stuff. The question is, how are they bettering their life? Illegal immigrants come in to better their life by working jobs and upholding like the agricultural sectors, the construction sectors, by benefiting the economy, by providing trillions of dollars in housing wealth, by lowering the crime rate. And so it's the question of what are the consequences of their actions. The consequences of someone breaking into my house are that I lose my stuff and I maybe die. The consequences of someone coming into the nation uninvitedly is that we get richer, our country gets safer, and we continue to lead the world in every single measurable metric.
I mean, it's a good reason for them.
Right.
Like, their reasons for breaking into your house is they want your
A little bit of hyperbole. I know we don't lead in every metric, but you know what I mean. We lead the world. We're at the helm.
stuff for a materially better life, just like the immigrant, right?
Right. Well, I guess that's subjective based on scenario, but I don't think that it's right to laugh about that in particular when it comes to immigration.
So you're not for illegal immigration?
I'm not, no, well, obviously not. I mean, I don't think that, it is what it is, though. You know, if we could stop it, then I think that would be great, but that's just not, I don't think that that's possible. I don't think that'll ever be possible.
What about deportations? Is that okay?
I think that depends, really, for me, morally. I think obviously criminals, that makes sense. That's been in place for a long time. But I think when it comes to kids like in the DACA program that have grown up here and have never lived like in their home country and they don't speak that language, I think that deporting them is immoral. I think that's wrong. And I understand that it's their parents' fault, you know, when they bring them over here. It's a selfish decision. But to put that on the kids kind of just seems unfair to me.
Doesn't it seem unfair to me?
It's an unfair situation all around. But
so how come this is what I don't understand about the empathy is morality crowd. I really don't get this part. And you say, well, Andrew, we really got to be empathetic towards these people and their plight. And it's like, but at the expense of me and mine. Where's the empathy towards me and mine?
What empathy for what? Empathy for the fact that you as a consumer now get to purchase goods at a lower price? Empathy for the fact that your nation leads the world precisely because the deleterious impact of birth rates has been obviated, of declining birth rates has been obviated by the fact that we've been bringing in immigrants to sustain a continually growing supply of labor such that we can continue to grow economically and not fall behind on the geopolitical stage, the economic stage. Like, what am I supposed to be sympathizing with? Andrew Wilson benefits from illegal immigration. Most Americans benefit from illegal immigration, just like they benefit from legal immigration. So if you presuppose that there's a harm being done to you, of course. Now, I don't know, maybe Andrew actually didn't graduate high school, in which case, I'm sorry, we need to redress the problem by giving you some money, I guess, but it seems like you're doing fine. But I think that he has a high school degree. You can tell me if I'm wrong. And so this whole thing just falls apart when you realize there is no harm that you can point to.
And then it just kind of becomes, well, their shit's worse.
Right.
Right? It's like, but isn't there supposed to be empathy on both sides?
I totally think that there should be, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to pick a side when it comes to stuff like this because...
These kind of podcasts are actually the worst. They just get like the most mid-wit women to make all women look stupid. And they have some like Andrew Wilson type or acolyte come in and just run these stupid arguments. It's like, how does no one get tired of this? One. Two, like, what is up with the dolls in the background, the random picture of Ziz? I mean, it's just it's strange. I'm not a big fan of these kinds of podcasts.
I agree with I agree with that, but I think that the implications for deporting somebody that's lived here for their whole life and they don't speak the language of their home country versus you having to deal with that person in a Walmart, I feel like it's a little bit of a different situation when it comes to...
Well, I understand it sucks for them.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. They're going to have a lot of readjusting to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, not every DACA recipient is under that, by the way.
No, not all of them.
But the thing is even for the ones who are, right? If you are to... This is one of the big kind of like primary problems maybe we can dive into with your empathy is morality thing. What about looking forward 30 years? Okay. So it's like right now we can be empathetic towards these people, right? That's true. But what if you send the signal that this is now okay? And so more illegals come in, have children here, understanding that, well, these kids in 20 years can make the same claim as the former DACA recipients.
Oh no, we will continue to get richer. We will continue to lead the world. We will continue to have a growing supply of labor. We will continue to have safer and safer cities. How horrible. One, two, it's just unrealistic. There are declining birth rates all around the world. We shouldn't be asking, how can we stop immigration? We should be asking, what happens when there are not enough immigrants to even bring to the country? Hopefully AI or automation will step in then. But this fantasy world that there's just a continually growing supply of immigrants ready to come in, it's just not true. Where are birth rates increasing? In like Africa, they're going to go to Europe. Some of them are going to end up coming here. But for the most part, we should be asking ourselves what's next for us, because it's looking like, without some sort of intervention, either in the birth rates of, Native Americans or, through automation, we could end up going the route of Japan, a country which restricted its immigration to the point where it has shrunk since 2000, whereas we've grown to $17 trillion, where it is no longer the premier Asian power, and its entire security rests upon the United States as the guarantor of its protection. So these just aren't even the right questions to be asking, but people are so stuck in these age-old arguments, these like fear-mongering conservative arguments, that we cannot make progress. We're just going to keep asking ourselves, what do we do? This sucks. We're just becoming safer and safer and richer. It's just so dumb.
Mm-hmm. And now we have to make all of them citizens as well, bypassing all of the other people who are in line. Not much empathy for those people, right?
Right. And
creating now a perverse incentive for more people to come and do it. Seems like it's
I'm pretty sure people who advocate for, the continuation of the flow of illegals into America are not going to be lacking in empathy for people waiting in line to immigrate. I'm pretty sure they would be the very people who are for a relaxing in the standards and a streamlining of the immigration system. So that's just a weird point too.
Least empathetic thing to do.
Well, what would your solution be then when it comes to deportation and legal immigration?
I would kick out every single illegal immigrant who was here and everybody here who wasn't a naturalized citizen.
Okay.
Gone. They have no business being in our nation.
And then after we do that, we can stop all of the legal immigrants coming so that people like Andrew can compete once again and not be outcompeted by the swaths of immigrants who are coming in. It's really what it comes down to with these people. These people, and it's why the right is blowing up, by the way. People are dissatisfied in life right now. And maybe it's due to technology. Maybe it's due to the increasing complexity of life for whatever reason. Maybe it's due to, the split between men and women, which is leading to a decrease in relationships and marriages and all of that. For whatever reason, people feel isolated. People feel dissatisfied with the state of things. And so they look for someone or something to blame. And it's really easy to say it must be the immigrants, or it must be all of these, liberal policies. When the reality is, no offense, but someone like Andrew would not have been a hyper-competitive person even in the 1950s or 1960s before you brought in all these people. And so there's this proposed counterfactual in a lot of people's mind. You see it on Twitter. People will say this is what they took away from us, or, they replaced us with an Indian. And it's like, dude, you were not competitive even 30, 40, 50 years ago. You're not losing your job because of immigration. You didn't deserve that job. And I'm sorry, it sounds harsh, but we are the most competitive economy in the world. We are the world empire. And so you can't expect to get the very best job by being less than. And people hate to hear this. I remember, I think actually a conservative like Vivek said this or something. People got so mad. But it's like, what is the alternative? That we lower the standards? It's complete naivety. And if we do lower the standards, we will fall behind as a country, and someone else will step up and say, okay, I'll take the world's talent then. I'm not saying, by the way, that everyday people shouldn't be cared for. Of course they should. But guess what? That's what we need to advocate for, is using the surplus benefit that's created through systems like immigration to redistribute it to people who are actually harmed, because there are negative externalities. People do experience harm as a consequence of this. Not everyone, and the harms are outweighed by the pros. But, we could step in and redress some of these harms. But, it's really hard to combat right-wing thought now because there is this general dissatisfaction amongst particularly people who inhabit online spaces. And it's just hard to kind of get through to them because it's not that their ideas rest upon a sound ideological basis that stems from, epistemological structures, reason, and rationality. It stems from dissatisfaction and emotion. And I don't really know how to get at that.
Nation is, from my perspective, it's culture, borders, language. That's how a very famous talk radio host, Michael Savage, used to frame it. I largely agree with that assessment. Culture, border, language.
Right.
So in this case, illegal immigrants who come in.
That doesn't even really make any sense. It sounds like he's defining nation as a nation state. A nation is a people with a common heritage or something like that, is how you would define it. A culture, ancestry. You can have a nation without geographical boundaries, so that's just a weird definition. But if the sacrosanct almighty Michael Savage said it, then it must be true, right?
They don't have the same culture. They often, even at the hotel I'm staying at, half of them don't speak English, right?
Right.
And
I will say, though, to give him something, I do think that there should be some sort of enforced English requirements. I think that people need to be able to communicate with each other. Now, maybe this will be solved through, some sort of thing you put in your ear and it translates for you. But as of now, I do agree that it can be annoying to, go into a place and no one speaks English. As someone who only speaks English. And so I think that actually that is maybe something that we could agree on. Maybe something like a national language is fine.
They've already violated the borders. So, for me, that's already criminal. So when you say things like, let's deport the criminals, I'm like, well...
And now we have that stupid semantic point. Well, they're already criminals, because that's not what people mean when they say criminals. That's like saying, oh, this guy ran a stoplight, So he's a criminal. There's clearly something else that we're getting at that's in the essence of that word. The referent is not what you're making it out to be. It's not like technical violation of some statute or standard or rule or law. It's actually more like a moral question. And, so much of the law is that. If you take contracts or something, if any of you are in law school, you'll see that a lot of questions of law end up boiling down to standards of ethics and morality and what is right and what is wrong, and we're going to construe the law in whatever way we want to make the result that we want, because, we want to redress wrongs. Reminds me of Cardozo, and there was this case, I'm not going to get into it, but someone was trying to get out of a contract. And I think that Cardozo spun a beautiful, sentence. He said something like, the law has outgrown the stage of primitive formalism where the word was the sovereign talisman. No longer will every slip be fatal. And what he's saying is that, we're going to look beyond these technicalities and ask what is right, what is wrong, what is meant, what is not meant, and we're going to go with that. And in the same way, we need to get beyond these sort of semantic arguments where we say things like, well, they're criminals by definition. Clearly, we mean something else.
There they are.
Okay.
Right? They're already criminals from my perspective.
Right.
They've already broken in here. So
When it comes to parents that come here and they have a kid here, though, and they raise that kid here, obviously they made a choice to do that. It's a selfish choice because they know that could be a possible implication. Do you still think that that's fine to...
Well, the law of the land is that if you're born here, you become a naturalized citizen.
Right.
So
that's not... So that would be...
I want to repeal that.
Okay.
I would like for there to be a different interpretation that says that a naturalized citizen, you have to have a mom and a dad, and both of them are native to the nation, and then they have a child, that child becomes native to the nation.
Right.
I would get rid of the soil policy altogether, but that natural born would require your mom and your dad both be citizens of the nation. And
a lot of this comes down to, interestingly, just like competing visions of what America is fundamentally. Because I hear people a lot on the right now, they'll say like, it was Kai Clips, I think is his name, or something like that, in a Jubilee video. He said, is everyone a potential American, or something like that? And it's like, in a way, yes. America is, and always has been, a propositional nation from the very beginning. This is one of the things that I hate, is that conservatives, they don't read American history, and so they want to spin it into something that it's not. These Truths by Joel Lepore, I think, is a great book on American history because it talks about the truths that we set out from the beginning, how we've deviated from them, but how ultimately there has been a through line of adherence and concordance to those values. For example, the early Americans owned slaves, but to pretend as though there wasn't a deep discomfort amongst the people who were signing the Constitution, amongst the people who debated these ideas with regard to the notion of slavery, is just to lie. They were deeply, deeply uncomfortable, and they were basically forced to allow it to go on for a little bit so that the Union could preserve. I think that, there's a quote from, there's a quote from Lincoln where he says, that if he could have preserved the Union without freeing a slave, he would have. If he could have done it by freeing all the slaves, he would have. If he could have done it by freeing some, not freeing some, then he would have. That is not to say that slavery doesn't matter. What he's getting at is that the Union, the preservation of the Union, is of foremost importance. That's the same idea that he borrowed from the founders. That's why the founders allowed for the institution of slavery to go on, because above all, they wanted to preserve the Union. But to say they weren't deeply ashamed is to ignore the fact, one, that they never even put the word slavery in the Constitution for good reason. We have deviated from our values at times. But if you look deeper, for example, a lot of people talk about the 1791 Naturalization Act, which says that only white people can become citizens. Well, guess what? Under that act, 70,000 Mexicans were naturalized. And just in the next century, there was a Supreme Court ruling that said that the children of Chinese citizens are as American as the kids of white citizens. And so we have always been a propositional nation. Yes, we have deviated at times, but it is actually true that America was a secular liberal experiment meant to test whether various peoples from around Europe, and then eventually from around the world, but also even from the beginning from around the world. George Washington toasted after, I can't remember the event, and he said, let this country be a sanctuary to the people of the world. He didn't say of Europe, he said of the world. It has always been a mission to create a cosmopolitan nation, to become one out of many, e pluribus unum. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that's misconstrued. The reality is there is a lot of evidence to point to the fact that that's not a misconstruing. John Quincy Adams, I think, said something like, shed your European skin, look forward to your posterity, not backwards to your ancestors. You are not a European, you're an American. And so I guess what I'm getting at here is this notion of the experimental nation, where we bring together the best of the best and attempt to create something great, attempt to go beyond what existed before, beyond this notion of a blood and soil nation, beyond this nationalism that would become so big a little bit later. We were attempting to become the next Rome, which Rome was a cosmopolitan nation, which united disparate peoples, which imbued various peoples from around the world with a common identity through Stoicism and then Christianity. And so I think that that's the true notion of what America is. I think there's a lot of evidence for this. I even have a little civics textbook back here from like the 1910s, which is very interesting because, you know, that is before a lot of these massive immigration waves come. And the same arguments were being made back then. I'll read the quote sometime from one of the pages, but this is a textbook to elementary students, and it says something along the lines of like, there's now an influx of immigrants from, you know, places like Italy and stuff, and people bemoan the immigrants. People, you know, say that, you know, we're losing our cultural and national cohesion, but they say in the book, literally the line that is like become propagandized now, they say that the young student will do well to remember, though, that we are all the descendants of immigrants. We all once came from somewhere to this nation, and a little bit of empathy is due to these immigrants. And I think that just goes to show these ideas are not new. They're old. They're American. They're instantiated and well imbued in the American ethic and ethos. And so, yeah.
Then you become a citizen. That's like my ideal citizenship policy.
So when it comes to immigrants working here, do you not think that they are good for the economy? Do you think that they are harming it?
Sure, slave labor is good for the economy.
Okay. It's different.
Well, not really. So
it's not different? Really? Let me ask you this then. People voluntarily cross the border illegally to come here to get a job. And when they're deported, they come back in. How many of the Africans who were enslaved, how many of them do you think they would have voluntarily got on those boats if they knew, you know, what was coming? Do you think it would be a similar rate? And if not, why? Are the Africans just stupid? Is that how you explain the difference in the rate? No. Or rather, are the, you know, immigrants now coming in, are they stupid? There has to be some sort of difference between the mindsets of the people to explain the gap if those two activities are the same, if it really is slavery. But if it's not, if there's a better explanation, if we can use a little bit of common sense and say that maybe it's not the same as slavery for people to come in and make more than they would have in their home country, to be able to send remittances back home, to be able to have an increased standard of living in a country to benefit the people around them and themselves. Maybe if we could use common sense and say that's not the same thing as slavery, we could explain that phenomenon better, the phenomenon that people actually choose to immigrate, whereas very few people would choose to put themselves into chattel slavery, into a system of chattel slavery. That is just the stupidest point. I really hate when people say the slave labor thing. People are not going to voluntarily put themselves into chains. And, you know, a lot of people might say, well, actually, after slavery ended, many people chose to remain in their positions. That's true, but that's a different question. That's a question of whether people will leave circumstances and situations in which they've spent their entire lives in, when out of nowhere people say you're free, even though it's like not really being free, you know. And that's a different question. You know, maybe human psychology would limit their freedom of action to such a degree that it's not representative of normal human behavior in that situation. But that's completely different than the former question of whether chattel slavery is the same as illegal immigration. Just completely nonsense. And you know that Andrew Wilson is smart enough to understand this, and so it makes you realize that he argues in bad faith.
It's because they have no documentation. They can be paid under the table. They send remittances back to their home nation, which is untaxed, right? Totally untaxed remittances.
Who cares? You just said that they're beneficial to the economy. Now you're saying that it benefits them because they're able to send remittances back home. So now it actually seems like you're making my argument for me, which is that it's beneficial on both ends. So, man, real slavery going on here, huh?
The hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not, I think it's billions actually, that they send back in remittances. But don't quote me on that. It's at least hundreds of millions.
Okay.
They're sending back to their home nations. That's non-taxable. The employer is able to squeeze out American citizens for the jobs because now they can pay under the table.
Right.
And then they do work.
They do. What American citizens are you talking about, dude? The entire reason why we imported so many immigrants is because we have aging populations. The median age of a white person, it's something in like the 50s. The mean is in like the 40s or 30s. I think it's the 40s. It's similarly, bleak when you look at African Americans. It's better when you look at Asians, but still not amazing. It's a lot better for Hispanics because those are a lot of the people who are immigrating in. We don't have this booming population to sustain the industries like agriculture, like construction, which is why these people went up to Trump whenever he started, messing and meddling in their business to say we cannot sustain ourselves. So they're not taking the jobs away from Americans. There is enough work to go around. It's just so fallacious, man.
Visa programs, but they're totally rigged.
Right.
So the work visa programs are totally rigged for various companies. The whole thing is a massive clusterfuck when it comes to that. So yeah, I don't think that that's good policy. I think that you're just kind of promoting slave labor essentially by giving people perverse incentives to have people come across the border, and then they have children here, and now we have a conundrum, right?
Right.
What's the conundrum? He just makes assertions, and for some reason this let me not be mean to that person. I don't know who this is, but this person just lets him make these assertions. Just right. Yeah, that's true. Grant every single premise, and his argument follows. Isn't it amazing?
Like, oh, what do we do now?
Well, I definitely am not advocating for slave labor. Or people getting paid under wage. I don't advocate for that, but just for
let me check how long I've been going. All right, 32 minutes. For some reason, I have this intuition. Every time I hit 32 minutes, I stop the video. But yeah, we'll stop it because there's a lot left. I don't want to go for over an hour. That would be insane. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. If you want to debate, my information is in. Sorry, I swallowed something. My information is in the description below, as always. And yeah, this was completely embarrassing. This guy is unserious. See ya.